Hey everybody. So the last video was admittedly a little bit intense. There's a reason that I've avoided sitting in front of a camera and talking directly to it for the large majority of this channel. It just feels weird to do. And most of the time when I think of something I want to say, it's about 3:30 in the morning, I'm in my pajamas, and it's really not the time that anyone wants to sit in front of a camera and talk to it. And you guys probably wouldn't actually want to see that. So I'm going to go ahead and give this a shot though, because I feel like after the last video being a little intense, maybe it might be good in this video to do something positive and give you guys a couple of things that have really helped me this year a lot, especially with everything that is going on. And I'm probably going to do this with my hair about 8,000 times while I make this video because it won't stay out of my face because I haven't gotten a haircut in forever. So what I'm about to tell you is all just stuff that's based on my own experience in my own life, things that have helped me. I've been really getting in touch with myself this year, strangely, while all this stuff is going on, and it's changed. I don't know, everything about my life has changed this year. And a lot of it has actually been in positive ways, personally, despite the ruckus that's going on all around us outside. So this is just 3 things that, again, have really, I feel like, helped me. And so maybe by talking about them, it'll help you too. The first thing is feeling your feelings, because this one is really important, and it's also one that I think a lot of people try to overlook. I think a lot of times when we're faced with something that causes negative feelings, the tendency is to try and shrink back from those or push them down or do anything we can to not actually feel them. And I just have realized that I've been doing that to myself for decades. It doesn't work. It doesn't work at all to push all your feelings down and not actually feel them, especially the negative ones. Actually, what tends to happen is they all get shoved down in there, and then they still have to come back out somehow. And a lot of times it comes back out in the form, for me, of discomfort and illness, and sometimes even it comes back out in getting angry about something else completely unrelated that I wouldn't have normally even gotten upset about at all, obviously, but then I end up getting to some negative pattern, and I don't even realize, I haven't realized it for a while that I do this sometimes. Avoiding your feelings, especially the negative ones, is not good, and it's not going to help you at all, and you're still going to have to experience whatever that is anyway. It's better to find a way to feel those things when you need to and get it over with, because then it's released, and then you have felt that. We talked about this in the movie Minds. I mean, they were shocking sheep. They were inducing neuroses in sheep back in the 30s, and they found that the sheep weren't actually as affected by the shocks as they were in the period leading up to the shocks, being worried about the shock coming. So it was the anxiety that actually caused the neuroses in the sheep, not the actual electrical shock itself. And I always think about that, and I always remember that it was the fear of the shock and not the shock itself that caused the most trauma to the sheep psychologically. So that's the first thing. You have to feel what you feel. We have to feel our emotions. We can't avoid them. I think in this society especially, we're trained to try and avoid negative things and pretend like we don't have those. And all that does is cause more problems. So that's the first thing. And it kind of goes into the second thing, which is a little more, I guess, maybe a strange thing to say, but I've been taking out time during the day to allow myself to actually just feel joy. Just to feel happy about things and recognize the happiness in the moment that I'm feeling it, and really allow it to fill me up and actually feel it. You know, even if everything around me is bad, like it's been a bad day, I've been in a lot of pain. I have some things that I'm dealing with that are very painful things. They cause a lot of physical pain. I've been dealing with them for years. And it's really hard when you're feeling pain, especially, to feel also joy in your body. Those things don't usually coexist together. But in overcoming those things, I've been trying to just be where I'm at and feel happiness in that moment. And even if you have to reach into your memory and pick something really awesome that's happened to you in the past and think about that, if you have to watch, a goofy, stupid movie, the best thing I think that I've found is thinking about potential things for the future. Which I know right now you're probably thinking, are you kidding me? Look at the things that are going on around us. But if we consign ourselves to whatever horror fest might happen in the future, and people don't actually know what is about to happen for sure, we don't. But if we consign ourselves to a negative future, guess what's going to definitely happen? Because it's almost like you then draw that future to yourself, almost like a magnet. You're just pulling it to yourself, right? And I don't think ever in my life, and I used to have a lot of anxiety, especially back in college. That was a pretty big deal for me then, because I was working 2 jobs. I was going to school. I had a small child at home. I was trying to do all of it at once, and I was a very anxious person over trying to get all this stuff accomplished. And I never realized this at the time, but being anxious all the time about things never actually helped me to accomplish those things better. And I somehow had lied to myself into believing that maybe it did. Like it spurned me to work harder to be that, but it didn't. Actually, what it did was it wore me down and it wore me out and it zapped my energy completely. If you do that long enough over time, it can cause your immune system to stop functioning properly. It can cause all kinds of stuff. And I don't think worrying about something ever once stopped that thing from occurring. I don't think being upset about something all the time and freaking out about it ever changed the outcome. I mean, if anything, it changed the outcome for something bad. It didn't actually change it in a way that was positive, that helped me in any way ultimately. I think all it's ever done is make things worse. And then I have to live in that stress all the time. And your body can actually get addicted to living in stress and living in survival mode. And then you will not realize this, but subconsciously, you'll start doing things in your own life to bring about the stressful situations that will then feed that addiction. And you won't even realize you're doing it. And then you're just feeding a cycle, like a loop that you've put yourself into. I lived that way for years, and without realizing that I was doing it. And it's awful. It's a really awful place to be trapped until you recognize it for yourself and stop it. And you have to consciously recognize it and consciously make the actions necessary to stop yourself from doing that. And it's I know that sounds like such easy advice, and I'm saying it took me years and years to be able to learn that and take that advice for myself. And it's still a struggle. It's still something that I work on, but it's so much better to not be trapped in that anymore. I think I've had way clearer thoughts. I've been able to accomplish a lot more work that is meaningful to me and not just break down under the weight of a lot of stress that most of the time I was causing myself. Because if I actually took the time to look around at what was going on, I would recognize that being anxious, being stressed out, and being upset was something I was doing to myself. It wasn't something I needed to be at that moment, because the things that were going on around me at that moment weren't actually bad enough to necessitate those kinds of reactions. It was a loop that I had programmed in, and I was just on it like a merry-go-round from hell that just kept spinning and spinning. So it's just something to think about. If you sit for 10 minutes even, or 15 minutes a day, and really focus and concentrate on a feeling of joy in your body, then your body starts to get used to that feeling. Then you start tipping the scales and tending more towards that. And it's way better. Then you get into a different loop altogether, one that's actually beneficial to you. Because then your body starts getting used to being happy, and then you start putting yourself in situations, creating situations where you can keep having that happiness. And instead of putting yourself in basically a dumpster fire on top of a dumpster fire, which is what happens when you're just anxious all the time. It's really like being in your own personal hell, and I do think a lot of people actually demonize themselves this way. They haunt themselves. If they're not haunting themselves and demonizing themselves by emotions they're not facing, they're doing it in this negative cycle and they don't realize it and start attributing it to all this outside stuff, right? Like you have just absolutely no control. When the truth is you have control over your reactions. You may not have control over everything that's going on in the world or whatever, or even everything that's going on in your own life. I think in a lot of ways, we all have the illusion of control, and then we try harder to hold on to that illusion, and then it just makes things actually worse because a lot of things we actually can't control. What we can control, however, is how we decide to respond to things. And that response really does change chemical reactions in your body that can affect you in both negative and positive ways. So feeling joy does something really amazing. I mean, I've seen it in my own life. This is the only reason I'm even saying this. And I'm sorry if it sounds cheesy at this point and I sound like a Hallmark card factory right now.
Daddy?
I was hoping you'd come looking for me.
Serious card.
I'm not trying to do that. I'm just saying by sitting and feeling actual joy, I've had more joy in my life. And if I looked at myself 15 years ago, that would be the exact opposite. I would be doing the exact opposite, and it was a really tough go. When I talked about my whole 20s being gone, I spent a lot of my 20s in a very bad place. I had a lot of really bad stuff happen when I was a kid, and I didn't deal with it for a very long time. And because I didn't deal with it for a very long time, it started haunting me. And then I started replicating those negative patterns in my life and drawing more negative situations to myself and more negative people who would also replicate those things. It's pretty interesting once you start analyzing decisions you've made and see how this works in your own world. So I've been taking out the time to just sit and feel happiness and focus on some positive things in the future and feel what it would feel like for those things to happen, because why don't we allow ourselves to do that? I mean, and also, what's the worst that could happen if you did that? I don't think it can do anything bad for you to do that. I don't think there's anything negative that can come of that. However, if you sit around and focus on all the things you don't have or all the stressful things or all the bad things in the world, a lot of bad things can happen to you. I mean, it's not just about your health and your immune system and the physical systems in your body, your mind and your emotions and all of this kind of stuff, but it's also about the decisions you then make in the world and what you're bringing into your life and everything else. You start surrounding yourself with some pretty bad stuff. So it becomes a whole thing with ripples that just go out and out and out, like splashing a rock in the water. So there's that. And that kind of leads me into the third thing that I wanted to bring up. And so if I hadn't sounded like a Hallmark card up until now, this last one might totally do it. But feeling thankfulness. And I'm not talking about Thanksgiving dinner. Prayer has really helped me immensely. It has helped me a lot. Prayer is a sacred ritual that people have engaged in for millennia, for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years going back. And I didn't really realize for a very long time in my life why that was. And I was stuck with a very crazy, angry, abusive stepmother for many years when I was growing up. So much so that when I was 9 years old, I was removed from her house after several meetings and calls to Child Protective Services. She was insane, and it was very bad. So my first real prayers were forced at us, usually as punishment by her. She was, again, nuts. So I never understood it. It just felt like saying words that we were forced to say for reasons that I didn't understand as a child. And so if anything, I'd be one of those people who ends up not doing it at all. But ever since, especially I met Aaron, this is something in this house we do every time we eat. We pray a lot. I mean, it's been very important to us. But it's more than just prayer, okay? It's more than just praying. It's feeling the actual thankfulness that comes with prayer. I'm starting to really understand the importance of that and what it means. And what I've been doing, especially this year, been really focusing on this, is to sit and feel actual thankfulness. I don't even use words when this is happening. I just sit and let the feeling of being grateful for what I have fill up my body. I feel it down in the pit of my stomach, in my core, and I just let it radiate out. And I just sit there with that feeling for a while. And that's like, I don't even know. That's like a good book and a warm bath all together in one place. It's a really good feeling to feel. No matter what is going on in your life, you can always look around and recognize that there are reasons to be grateful and happy for what you've got. And I think a lot of times in this society especially, we're trained, programmed, engineered to focus on what we don't have. And if you spend all your time focusing on what you don't have, you're also going to end up with a lot less because you're focused on nothing. So you're going to get nothing. I mean, it's kind of how all of this works. Feeling actually thankful fills you up with more joy, really, is what it does ultimately. But it just gives you a moment to put everything into perspective. And the thing is just saying words, if you don't back up what you're saying with emotions inside, nothing's gonna happen. It's just words coming out of your mouth. It's just blah. It doesn't mean anything. Your body doesn't feel that feeling. It's like if someone walks around all day and they're like, I'm not afraid, I'm not afraid. But inside, if what you feel is actual fear, it doesn't matter what you say, your body's gonna be in fear. So just saying words isn't gonna help. It's the emotion, the feelings behind those words that gives the power, the energy to those words. That the energy that sets off electrochemical reactions in your body that are positive things that help you. That's what that is. So feeling actual thankfulness, it goes along with feeling actual joy, but it's really changed everything because I just sit there with it until I can really, really physically feel it. And it's almost like a switch gets flipped on in my body. I can feel the gratefulness for things. And God is good. So I tend to feel that these three things more than anything else. I mean, there's all the practical advice about getting sunlight and going outside. Of course, here in Texas, we have had heat index averages of 111 to 113 most of the days for the last month or two, actually. So going outside just all the time here is not really something that most people are doing because it's extremely, extremely hot this year. It's just another thing on the list of things that's really weird about what's happening right now, but that's another story for another time. Point is, to the practical advice, there's a lot of good stuff to be said there, and I'm not discounting any of it. I'm just saying these three things for me on a daily basis have been extremely life-changing. This is all just stuff that I've been trying to think about in my own life, because what I'm trying to think about right now is how I can make things better. And I can't make things better in the world until I can make things better in my own life. Coming from a person who has been someone who is completely anxiety-ridden in the past and lived in that state for years straight, I understand that if I was me then and I was hearing myself say this now, I'd be like, yeah, right, that's really great advice, super easy. I'll just do that right now. Thanks a lot. Probably some cuss words or something. But if you just take a moment to think about what I've said, feel your feelings, and when you're done feeling whatever that is, if it's negative, feel some joy too. Let yourself have it. And I'm just saying this to the people who need to hear it. I know not everybody listening to this needs to hear that, but for the people that do, that's kind of what this is supposed to be. So, and then thankfulness. Most everything I want to make right now is super long. Most everything Aaron wants to make is super long. That is why you're not seeing, all these little short videos coming up, because a lot of the stuff that we're working on is very long, bigger things. But anyway, I love you guys. I hope this has been helpful to the people that needed to hear it, and I'll talk to you soon.